Employer's perspective, there are a lot of things to be cognizant of, but I think one of the bigger things is that consuming marijuana in the workplace will be illegal under the Ontario legislation. And a lot of people wonder whether, at work events where we currently consume alcohol, whether the landscape is changing so much that we'll be consuming marijuana in whatever form once the new legislation comes into force. And the answer there is no. The Ontario government has prohibited the consumption of marijuana in the workplace. It won't be prohibited to bring marijuana into the workplace unless the employer has a policy in place prohibiting that. So employers can put policies in place to manage their workplace and have pretty much free rein in doing that as long as they don't breach the Human Rights Code or the employee's privacy. If an employer wanted to, for example, prevent employees from, it could be alcohol as well, or any other kind of drug into the workplace, they could have a policy on that. Policies in place is good for a number of reasons. First of all, to make sure employees understand what's expected of them, what's prohibited, that they know the kind of workplace they're working in. What some employers will allow and what some employers will encourage are very different from one workplace to another. So it's important for employees to understand that. Having policies in place that sets out what the employer's expectations are is important. It's important for fairness for the employees who will later be judged by the policy in place, and there may be disciplinary action because they breach a policy. Second of all, as I said, in Ontario, consuming cannabis in the workplace will be illegal, and there are penalties that go along with that. It would be nice for employers to have a policy in place that says that they forbade the consumption of marijuana in the workplace. It may go a distance in helping them to defend a charge in that sense. You would need the employee's consent if it's a fundamental part of their employment contract. So if we're talking about the employee's pay, their duties and responsibilities, those would be areas where you would need the employee's consent. But we have policies in workplaces and all kinds of things that aren't fundamental to their employment relationship. I would say that the consumption of marijuana or bringing marijuana onto the premises would be one of those areas that is not fundamental to the employment relationship and allows the employer to put policies in place, and as long as they bring them to the employee's attention, that they can enforce those policies. When employers call me or meet with me about breaches of policies, okay, even before we have marijuana being legalized, we have the same kinds of issues. We have alcohol issues and we have illicit drug issues already. What I tend to say to employers is you need to really be sure first, you have your facts straight, that it's very likely the employee breached the policy before you go ahead and, I would say, discipline the employee or even think about terminating the employee. So oftentimes what I'm doing is helping or suggesting to the employers that they have some restraint. They show some restraint before they go ahead and take any drastic measures, which could lead to a rupture of the employment relationship and damages for the employee, or may harm the employee's reputation. Because you allege someone's done something illegal or in breach of a policy, it's defamatory. As we discussed, the Cannabis Act prohibits the consumption of marijuana in the workplace. The definition of workplace has been taken from the Occupational Health and Safety Act, which is a very broad definition and basically covers anywhere an employee might work outside of the actual building that, the headquarters of the company. So if an employer had a work-sanctioned event and allowed employees to consume marijuana at that work-sanctioned event, that would be illegal. Employees using marijuana for medical purposes won't change because of this legislation. As I said earlier, employers don't necessarily have to accept any kind of impairment in the workplace, but employers do have to abide by the Human Rights Code. which says you have to accommodate an employee up to the point of undue hardship. And just as you have an employee in the workplace who may be taking opioids for pain, they're going to have some level of impairment already, and we have to accommodate that. Okay, medical marijuana would be very similar. So this is already happening within the framework that employers and HR representatives know about. So I don't expect there will be much of a change there for medical marijuana. So technically speaking, an employee who's working from home with the employer's consent, is working in what would be considered an extension of the workplace. Therefore, the consumption of marijuana would be illegal.
Wow.
As the legislation is currently drafted, right now there are no exceptions to the prohibition about consumption of marijuana in the workplace. There's nothing in the regulations about that either. And unless the law changes, then consuming marijuana in any workplace or extension of the workplace would be illegal.